Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live session, Breaking into Product Without Experience, with me, David Pereira and Maarten Dalmijn. Wow, 141 people already. Let me bring you the guy also who will participate here with me, and we will have the talk. Welcome, Maarten.
Hey everyone, good to be here on this Saturday.
We have just started here, and there are already 100 people. Wow, and it's growing the number, a lot of comments. So let's just start with some interaction. Just write where are you from, what do you do? And then we will just exchange experience here and share. How can you break into product without
So where are
experience?
you at the moment, David?
I am in Munich, at home. And you, where are you now?
In Hilversum, so near Amsterdam, and also at home.
Good. And I see people here from different places, from Nigeria, India, Tel Aviv.
Nice. I'm not seeing any of the comments, by the way.
You're not seeing, I'm just gonna put some people here. You can see.
Oh yeah, I know him. Hi, Alberto.
And we have also people from India, Tel Aviv. So welcome everyone. I'm glad to have all of you here.
Yeah, on this Saturday during holiday period. Well, it depends, of course, where you're from. At least here, it's a holiday period.
Here also. And it's a beautiful day in a crazy week. It was raining every single day, and this Saturday is beautiful.
Yeah, we made a mistake. We should have moved the event, David.
I see people from Germany also, but I think it will be nice here. Let's see.
The
Philippines.
Philippines, nice.
Wow, from all over the world here.
Hi, Evelina, nice. Nottingham.
Nottingham. Oh, there's this place. I cannot even pronounce this place here. Sorry. From India, it's different to pronounce.
Yeah, we're
So
sorry.
we have some of your neighbors here, also, Maarten.
Yeah, very nearby. I mean, I was born in Amsterdam. I'm an Amsterdammer, as they say, but I moved away because the housing prices there are, yeah, I cannot afford a decent house anymore in a decent neighborhood.
Well, I share the feeling. In Munich, this is what is happening. It's growing crazy and crazy, but that's how it is. Well, we have here already 230 people, and the number keeps growing. Let's see how many people will just join us here in this session. Should we start, or should we just people?
It's fine with me. We can start. I can start by sharing my screen.
Great. Okay, so let's put here on the screen. I will add. So here it is.
Do you see my screen, David?
Yes.
Awesome. So welcome everyone, breaking into product without experience. So yeah, David and me decided to co-host this event because we both have different backgrounds, we have different journeys, but what we have in common is that it was not easy to get into product, and we want to share our story, share some of our insights, some of the obstacles we faced and how we overcame them, and as well give the opportunity to interact to help you with your current challenges. But before we dig any deeper, let's first start with an introduction because some of you might not be familiar with David or me. David.
Okay, so what can I tell about me? I have a lot of experience in product management in different things in different countries, from startups to big corporations. I worked in a place that had only 20 people in the beginning, and it was 3 months old, really startup. And I also worked in corporations of 100,000 people, totally different. So I've experienced quite a lot in product management. And currently I am leading a team in Germany of product managers. And apart from that, I love sharing what I have learned from mainly my failures and helping people escape from the traps ahead of them. So you can find my articles in Medium. And I am a very curious person. What I try to do is learning from everyone. And this is one of the reasons I like writing, because then I get resonance from the community, and I also read articles from other writers and help them. And this is fascinating for me because then I can try different things. Mainly, that's what I can say in summary. And I live in Germany now. I'm originally from Brazil, and I moved to Germany at the end of 2017.
Nice. So yeah, about me. Hi, I'm Maarten. I've around 10 years building experience building products at startups and scale-ups. I introduced Scrum at the fastest growing startup in the Netherlands and also moved all of their teams to feature teams across multiple offices around the world. I wrote around 130 articles on Medium on Scrum and product management. I actually have been writing far longer than David, but he already has more articles. That says something about his work ethic. And yeah, I'm writing a book on sprint goals with Addison Wesley in the My Cone series. And I'm currently head of product at Rodeo, so I'm responsible for the product at a startup. So I'm still in the trenches, and I'm trying to share my learnings with people around the world, and also my failures, of course. Yeah, so why are we doing this? Because we're doing this because David and me believe that landing a job in product is tough. So it's a relatively new field, and one of the examples is there's still a lot of discussions going on. What's the difference between a product manager or a product owner? Uh, there are not a lot of entry-level roles. There are some companies that used to have them. For example, I know Booking.com used to have entry-level roles, and then they stopped. Maybe they did started doing it again. I don't know, but there are not a lot of entry-level roles where you can apply with no experience at all in product. And another problem is there's no job that really prepares you to be a product manager or a product owner other than doing it. And that's why we're giving this talk, because we want to help share your insights to lower the barrier to entry and maybe provide some helpful tips to make it easier. But before we start, I want to explain some things because we're going to use product manager and product owner interchangeably. That might be a bit confusing, but just keep in mind both are just product management experts. Product management is the agnostic label. So whether you use Kanban or Scrum, doesn't matter. And PO is the label in Scrum. And yeah, I also want to stress we're not selling anything, right? We're just doing this to help out. And we hope it will help you, of course. So what I also want to say is it's going to be difficult. It's not easy. It took me 4 years to land a job in product. I had hundreds of rejections, and sometimes I even was rejected in the 5th round. So it was very difficult. It might also have been me, right? But David took a different road, and that which is why it's interesting. David, maybe you can also tell a little bit.
Yeah, for me it was different because I got the position internally, but I landed this without experience. And being experienced in the role made the journey really tough. And I learned from failing, and it was not easy. I faced a lot of setbacks, and I had to reinvent myself many times.
So yeah, so how we structured this. So basically what we're going to do is we have divided it in 5 steps. So the first step is epiphany, right? How do you realize you want to work in product? What is it actually about? Then as part in strategy, how do you decide what kind of product roles you should be applying for? How do you get invited for the interview without experience? How do you do interviewing when you don't have experience? And then imagine you get the job. How do you survive and succeed? Because yeah, even if you get a job without experience, it's not going to be easy. So we also want to help out there. So let's start with the epiphany. So David, can you tell me a little bit about your background and if you believe it's adequately prepared you for a role in product?
Okay, so let me see where I start. My background is technical. I did a bachelor in computer science and then a master in software engineering. And I'm unsure if that alone prepared me because at the beginning I was always thinking in features and how to build that. And this is the reason I did an MBA after. I was a path I choose to get more information. But when I started the MBA, I was already a product owner. So this is something I try to use the MBA to cover my incapacity of understanding business. Because when I was fully focused on the development aspect, I just wanted to know how to implement things, and I want to implement it right. And I ignored what is the right thing to do. And what about you? I'm curious.
Yeah. So I don't have a technical background. I studied biology and I have a master in functional genomics. So, and I can tell you, I suffered from the same trap. I also focused on features and building things. So I don't know if the background has something to do with that. Maybe it's the lack of experience. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think the same. It's the lack of experience. And I don't know about you, but when I started in the role, I didn't have anyone to tell me what is the right thing to do. I was left there alone to figure out how that happens. And you know how it is, stakeholders just pressuring you to do more. And I was just trying to do right what they wanted without knowing if they needed.
So how did you learn the most? Like because basically what I'm hearing is your study didn't prepare you. You had the job. So how did you like what did you learn? How did you learn?
I learned with the setbacks I had, one failure after the other, and something was wrong. And then I needed to search for something outside of my, let's say, work, because inside I would not get the information I needed. I learned from books, from workshops, webinars, and exchanging with people outside of my network. I needed to go and talk to people.
Yeah,
And you? How?
I recognize that. So I really
Ah,
recognize that. So yeah, I also learn most. I actually learn mostly from books and reading. I don't talk so much to people. I don't know why. I just like reading. It goes at my own speed. And yeah, but I learned the same way, mostly through my own failure. And that's also because I think product. I mean, I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's growing. And when I started, it was not as big as it is now. What do you think
yeah,
about that?
yeah, it's the same here because when I started, it was 2011. It was not that big, and being honest, I didn't even know what a product owner was. Although I had the title, and I thought, "Well, what is this? Let me try to figure out that." And I tried to learn in a similar way also with books. I remember what I did. I went to Scrum.org and I looked at the certificate and I said, "Oh, what are the recommended books here?" And then I bought five of them and then I read on my way, created mind maps and so on. I said, these are the things I'm not doing, and maybe I should start doing them.
Yeah, really recognizable. So let's go to the next part. So that's actually very interesting. But how did you actually discover that you wanted to become a product manager?
Well, I can say what I discovered. I didn't want to be a developer because, like, I was a developer for some years already, more or less 4 or 5, and I realized most of the thing I was delivering, they were not helping people. They were actually making their lives worse. And I worked in a factory, and I realized I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something that is relevant. So I thought I want to be the one defining what makes sense to do and help developers to do it what is right, and not to do things for the sake of doing. But I didn't even know that this person was a product manager. I back then thought it was a project manager, and I started studying even project management. But then I realized, whoa, this is not what I expect actually. And then somehow I landed in a job being a business analyst, and then I connected to the product manager and decided to do that. It was more on the way. I just knew what I didn't want to do.
So it was basically you were doing something and there was a sense of frustration, we can do better, and then you slowly move towards a position where you could make a difference. Is that would be a good way of putting it?
Yeah, I moved to a position. It's kind of that's what happened. But I got the position by chance, and then I experienced with that, and then I said, "Oh, that's it." But the tipping point for me was I realized I like talking to the real people who use the software. When I was a developer, I had a lot of energy from that. I talked to them. I said, "What are your problems?" And I observed, said, what are you trying to achieve?" Instead of saying like, "What are you going to use this feature for?" Like, what are you trying to achieve? So what are your struggles? And I enjoyed this kind of conversation. I said, maybe there would be something other than developing itself.
That makes a lot of sense.
And what about you? Because you have a different background, and how did you come to
Yeah.
product manager?
Yeah, so my first job was actually as a marketing manager, and I was actually closely involved with product. And my manager said that he wanted to make me a product manager because he saw a lot of potential for me, and I didn't even know exactly what it was. But when he told me about it, like that I would be even more involved with building the product, I became super excited and super energized. And unfortunately, the company went bankrupt, so it never
Oh,
happened. And it was in 2008, so I couldn't find a job, and not even in marketing. So I was applying to marketing jobs, even though I had experience. I was not able to find a job. So yeah, that's when I decided, okay, I want to become a product manager. So I'm going to work in IT because nobody's going to hire me as a product manager without any experience, without any technical background. That's at least was my thinking at the time. And yeah, that's how I decided to become a QA.
interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe this is also a good question for the audience, right? So I don't know if I need to unshare my screen, David, but when did you realize what's the moment when you had this epiphany? Hey, I want to be a PM or a PO.
When I realized,
And this is
yeah,
for the audience. For the audience.
mhm. So yeah, so we can ask the audience, and I see some questions here already.
Oh, we can also
Um,
answer some questions, but
so yeah, please just write here in the comments, and then I will put here like, when did you realize you want to work as a PM or PO? Um, there's one already here. When the company wanted to go into products and needed a PM.
okay, that makes sense. And I'm curious to understand like what was appealing, or you're like, hey, I'm the right person to do that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because one of the companies I left is exactly when they decided they didn't want to have products anymore, and they joined product and IT. And I said, no, that's not what I believe. And I quit it. It's the opposite of this.
That's funny. Wow, I admire that you did that.
Someone shared here. My situation is just like David's. I am a developer with 5 years of experience, and I feel that I would be able to deliver more value as a PO. I love talking to people and getting things done.
Ah, it's your little brother, I guess, David.
Yeah, very similar, and now it's a matter how you get there. Curious if you are just trying to move on these, if you are searching, applying,
So David,
what you are focusing.
I
Mhm.
can't see how many comments there are. So because I'm not sharing my screen. So let me know if you want to go to the next.
Yeah, I think we have some people just sharing here. There are a lot of comments here already. I'll just bring one, and then we go to the next one here. This is an interesting one. I was trusted by my partners because I have a little political background. My CPO said PM have to perform some politics around team leaders. What do you think about it, Martin?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you became a head of product recently, but I do think politics is important. I mean, it sounds negative, but you need to be able to influence people, and yeah, politics is influencing people. It just sounds dirty.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds dirty, but good politics work pretty well. So I think this is important. And if you have this skill, it will work out. And actually, I have worked with a person who has a bachelor in political science, and he was pretty good at the job without any technical background. He really knew how to get things done.
Hmm, nice.
Let's go to the next one. Let's continue here because we have really a lot of comments.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, now let's get a little bit to business, right, David? So can you tell a little bit? So you told us you had a technical background, and you kind of started as developer, and you realized after a while, hey, I can make a bigger difference in product. Uh, so I want to move there. Can you tell me a little about the steps you took to get there?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I will try to make it as sharp as possible. It always started without thinking about this. I wanted to improve my English. That was the thing. Actually, I wanted to study abroad, but I didn't have enough resource for that. So I took an immersion course in Brazil around my town. And it happened like the last day, it was an immersion course of a week. And the last day, everyone had to present something to show how you develop your English. And then I decided to present what I was working on. And what I didn't know, one guy who was just studying there was a CEO working in Sao Paulo. And after the presentation, he came to me and said like this, I think we should talk. And I said, okay, of course we can talk. And then he said, I'll be very honest with you. What is happening is I have a financial background. I have no fucking idea what these guys are talking in the IT, and they want to develop many things. But the way you talk, it makes it simple. You explain technical aspects and terms in a way I can understand. And I would like to have you in a company. I don't know what job you would have, but I would like to have you there. Let's continue this conversation. And then I went to Sao Paulo. I had a talk with him, and he offered me a position to be a business analyst. To be honest, I didn't know what a business analyst was back then. But I understood. I would be talking to the stakeholders and understanding, and then talking to the developer. I said, that sounds interesting. Maybe I would like to do that. And then I moved from a town of 20,000 people to Sao Paulo, 20 million people. It was a massive thing. And I was a business analyst for around 6 to 9 months. And the company decided to go agile. Said, we are going to work in a different way. And now all the business analysts will have a chance of being a product owner. And then that's how I ended up being a product owner without not even knowing what a product owner was. And then I had to say, what is this guy? What should I do? And so on. Yeah, but it's a bit funny story, but that's how it happened. And actually, I fell in love with the job, and I really enjoyed that. And until now, I get energy from this thing.
So basically, you were selected, right, handpicked by the CEO of a company, and then when you were in the company, there was a little bit of luck involved there that they decided to do Scrum.
Yes.
Nice. I'm jealous.
Yeah, I guess your story is not as simple as mine. How did it happen with you?
Yeah. So what I can say is I think your story is the dream, right? Because basically you're in a company, they trust you, they like you, and then you get the job. Um, Basically, the main disadvantage I think you had is there probably weren't a lot of people you could learn from. So that maybe made it more difficult. But my story basically is, so as I said before, first job was marketing manager. Then I decided to go into IT because whenever I talk to developers as a marketing manager, it sounded like the Swedish chef from the Muppets, like Borg, 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 Borg. I didn't get anything they were saying. So I decided, okay, I'm going to work as a QA. And back then, QAs were super scarce. Do manual testing and learn some more, develop a deeper understanding of tech, so I could understand what these developers were talking about better. And yeah, so I was a QA, and I then decided, okay, let's try and apply for some product owner jobs. And yeah, I didn't get invited. So I was like, okay, this is not going to work out. I had like, I don't know, I'd sent like 50 job applications, zero invites. Yeah. So then I decided, okay, let's move to another company so I can gain a bit more experience working with Scrum and Agile because they weren't working that way. And then let's take it from there. So at that company, I became a Scrum Master. I worked as QA, and I actually got promoted to a business analyst, just like you. And then I started applying for jobs as a business analyst, and I was not getting invited either. And I really, I spent hours polishing my resume, perfecting sentences, trying to use the right words so people recognize it. Still not getting invited. But what I did then was very simple, actually. And I don't think this will work nowadays, right? Because I will explain why later. but basically I did the PSPO certification. Back then, very few people had it. And I put on top of my resume that I was a certified product owner, which was true. I was a certified product owner. I didn't have any experience as a product owner, but I was a certified product owner. And yeah, then I suddenly got invited for 70% of the interviews. And I even got approached by recruiters, which is crazy because it literally was only one line I changed. And you might not believe it, but this is literally what happened.
Wow. So you were really resilient, different than me. You knew exactly what you wanted, and you were persistent until you could get there. And understand, and it was not easy.
Yeah, no, it was very tough. And yeah, the reason I kept on going because I really wanted it. But yeah, I think persistence is important. I think it's kind of
Totally.
like landing a job in product. You can often compare it to landing your first job because, yeah, you often don't have a lot of experience, which is relevant to your first job in product. So that makes this gap really big. What do you think about that, David?
So I think it's totally true, and because even when I came from development, in theory, I knew how to build a product, but being a product owner or product manager is totally different. It's another career, and you need a different set of skills, and you need to learn that. Uh, it's really like starting from the blank, starting all over again, and you need to be persistent and willing to go to a learning journey, I would say. Because if you're a developer and you know how to do your job, you go. Of course, you always learn, but step by step is incremental learn. And once you move to product, it is a new journey. You need to unlearn some things. How you communicate, mainly, it's different. It's still different.
Yeah, I totally recognize that. Yeah, so this I think this question for you maybe is less applicable, but you can maybe you can tell a little bit more, right? Because you said, so how did you convince someone that you were capable of doing a product job you had never done before? So in your case, there were many business analysts, I assume, and some of them could become a product owner. So how that could you tell a little bit more about how that happened?
Yeah, in this case, I would not give this. I would give the answer of something else that happened, because in this I received the chance. So uh, I will not make up anything. But it happened when I decided to leave this company, because this company was a company of 4,000 employees and was bought by a big corporation of 100,000 employees, and then they abolished Scrum, and everything became waterfall. And that is my I don't want to work waterfall. And then it's when I decided to leave. And I wanted to go to the startup world. And what happened during the interviews, the guy said, "You have no experience with this whatsoever. Why can't I believe you can do the job?" So, and then that is what it came like. How can I convince I can do the job? And I said the following: you know what? I just want to learn how to build products correctly. I want to do something. I'm passionate about product. And there is the probation period. And let's do the following: I take my salary, I drop 10%, you hire me, and you give me the chance. It's probation period. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, okay, I move on. Just give me the chance. I can help you reach what you want. And it was a talk with directly the CEO, and it was a startup of 20 people. And he said, "I like the spirit. You're taking the risk. Let's go together on this." And then I got the job. I took the risk. I dropped my salary. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
that's what
think
I
it's
did.
I think that's a really nice story, and I think that also shows, right? I don't think he hired you. I mean, I don't know, right? I mean, I wasn't there, but what I'm feeling is that you were probably hired because he saw something in your character, right? This persistence, this not giving up, and this spirit, right? Like, hey, I really want to do this, so I'm going to make it work, and that was basically what convinced him. Hey, I'm going to take the risk. I believe this guy that he's going to give it everything.
Yes, it was a character. It was He didn't hire me for the skill, because the experience I had previously had nothing to do with startups. I was I, I moved from the trade marketing business, like, to car sector. Had nothing to do with each other. And this startup wanted to disrupt this, and I had no domain knowledge. And And one thing that almost spoiled everything was a PSPO certificate, actually, because that was 2016, and I got the certificate in 2016. And he said, "But you got the certificate only now. Does it mean you only learn what a product owner is now?" I said, "I'm doing that for 5 years already. It has nothing to do with the certificate. I just decided to have it at this very moment." He said, "Okay." But he said, the thing is the following: it's risky. And if you are willing to take the risk and the consequence of that, I'm going to hire you. But it's up to you. I said, done. When do I start?
That's a really cool story, and I admire your guts. So, did you get nervous, or were
Ooh,
you?
a lot, a lot. Well, because imagine, I lived in Sao Paulo. It's a high cost living. And I was in a stable job. I had a good salary. And for me, it was good. I wouldn't be fired there. I had built my reputation already and people trust me, but I wanted to keep growing in my career. But I had to drop my salary, go to something I had no idea what would work out. But I felt, this energy towards the unknown and the possibility of growing. And I said, I need to do it and to see what happens.
It's really cool.
And but your story is different. Was when I transitioned, and I had already the title product owner to CV, so that helped anyway to convince. But you didn't have. How did you get to convince someone?
Yeah, I think you need a bit of luck, right? That's the reality of it as well. I mean, I think I was rejected hundreds of times, so you need a bit of luck. And I think what happened was I basically evolved a strategy, and I will get more into that later, of deciding, okay, I'm going to approach smaller companies, for example, because they are willing to take more risks, which also shows in your story, in my opinion. Like a corporate, it's more likely to happen. They just check. Do you check tick the boxes? Yes. And if you do not, then very likely you won't get hired. But in my case, what I really did is I spent so much time on my motivation letter, right? I was a business analyst, so I actually did quite a lot of the things. I did stakeholder management. I did write user stories. So I think what I try to do is really craft this image. Hey, I'm already doing most of the job. That's what I was kind of trying in my resume and my motivation letter, and also in the conversation. Like, you don't need to worry. I know what I'm doing, uh, and yeah, um, that confidence. I think in combination with spending a lot of time researching the company. I think also candidates don't do this enough. For example, if I would interview for a company, I would have used their product and asked them thoughtful questions so they knew I used their product and they knew I did a good job in preparing. So this showed motivation and this eagerness to learn. And yeah, then at some point, somebody just like you just thought, hey, I believe this guy. He's going to be able to do it, even though he has zero experience.
That resonates with me a lot. It's not because you don't have the title that you don't have the knowledge to do something. And this is a mistake many recruiters commit. They don't see the title product owner, product manager, think, oh, you cannot do it. But stakeholder management and also user store backlog management,
Yeah,
they can be done by, yeah.
it's very fascinating, right? That these mistakes get made. I don't get
Yes.
it because I can give you an example. I told you I introduced Scrum at one of the fast growing startup in the Netherlands, and I actually applied a few years back as an agile coach, and they rejected me because I was a product owner, and I was like, what? Even I introduced Scrum at a company and did the whole agile transformation there. I trained all the product owners, trained all the Scrum masters, and then you get rejected because you don't have relevant experience. Mind blown.
Yeah, I see
I
this.
mean,
I can understand because I was rejected also once as an agile coach. At some point in
very.
time, I was in doubt if I wanted to be a product owner or agile coach because I had been working in a kind of dual roles at some point in time, being a product owner and a scrum master. And said, maybe I should pick one side. And then I said, I want to experiment more with this agile coach. And I went until the fifth round of interview to the end to say, you're not a fit for us because, you know, you don't have dedicated experience in that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's a very telling story, right? This just shows that in the end of the day, if they have doubts, those doubts will resurface and they will, yeah, they will make them reject you. Like that will, it
Yeah,
always happens.
exactly.
Yeah. So, how did you get invited to interviews? Actually, I think we kind of already tackled this one already. So, uh, yeah. So I think this is also a good topic to talk about, right? In your case, you can also talk about this maybe in general, because
Hmm.
I assume you've been rejected many times, right? And if you're going
Yes.
to apply for product owner or product manager positions, I can guarantee you will be rejected many times. And how do you deal with that rejection?
I was rejected many times. This is true. The first part, how I get invited. The truth is, most of the times I was invited through LinkedIn. A recruiter
Yeah.
approached me internally or headhunter, but I've been rejected. I don't know, dozens of times already, and but there are some particular one that changed my life. The first one is from a company in Netherlands, Booking.com. I was rejected. They approached me, and once I had the interview, actually, I realized I was not prepared. And although I thought I was a good product owner and had the skills, by talking to them, I realized I lacked a lot of skills of product management. I knew how to handle the backlog, I knew how to do the things of a product owner, but I didn't know how to deliver value. I didn't know how to measure outcome and all of this. And how I dealt with the failure was I have to learn some things and I have to learn them as quick as possible because I am not being a product owner, a real one. I am being more like a feature owner or like a backlog manager, so to say. And I took that as a learning opportunity. So that is how I dealt with this failure. Uh, that's how I prefer looking. But sometimes it's just a mismatch. Companies expect something, or that, and you bring something else to the game. It just doesn't fit, and it can be also from your side because I come from Brazil, and in Brazil, people want a job for a living. So one job to put food on the table. So it's kind of a you just want to get a job, and doesn't mean what is exactly the job. But what I think is you need to get a job that you love. You do something that is meaningful. Otherwise, why do we wake up every day and go to job and spend 8, 9 hours a day there? So I think differently. And interviews, I think it's not only an opportunity for the company to reject you, but also for you to reject the company. And many times this is not the case.
You're
How do you
right.
see that?
No, I like the point that you touched upon. It's so important to learn from interviews because in interviews, I can tell you, I've done so many product owner interviews that you're going to get the same kind of questions. Most questions are not that original. So by doing more interviews, you will figure out, oh, these questions I'm not doing that well. And you can do that, find it out by reading their body language, right? After you give an answer to see how they're responding. But as well, what you notice sometimes good interviewers, they will actually give you a second chance, right? They will actually give you a little bit more information. So then you realize, oh, I didn't cover something. So I think this is really important. And as well, like reach after you're rejected, try to call and try to get more information. They're often quite hesitant, but uh, you can learn so much from rejection because and then the next time you will do it better, and then at some point you will reach this level that it's good enough that they're like, yeah, this person knows what he or she is talking about.
Totally true. And when I'm rejected, I ask for feedback because this is something I will be honest. I'm pissed off with recruiters when they reject you and say, "Well, unfortunately, you didn't make it," or they don't even send you a message. They just leave you in a blank. I ask for feedback. I say, "I'd like to know why I was rejected, and then I can learn from that." But for example, now as a head of product, if I reject someone, I always offer the chance of giving feedback. And I don't ask HR to give feedback. I go there and I give feedback because I want to help a person to develop. And this is very important to me. And by asking for feedback, I could understand what I was missing. And I know why I was rejected many times. And I think we will approach this later today. But I will share some stories and what I learned from that.
Very nice. So yeah, so we did a lot of interviewing, or sorry, talking, right, regarding these topics. But let me just talk a little bit about what you should be doing, right? Instead of saying, hey, this is how we did it, just some lessons learned. So either you can dive in the deep end, right? So you immediately apply for a product owner or product manager role. Well, depending on what your current role is, imagine you're currently working like me in marketing. That's diving in the deep end. I think it will be very difficult to get a job because it's just too far removed. Uh, you can of course try, right? Because if you get invited, that means, hey, your resume is credible enough, so you can try it. But very often I think it's more sensible to follow a stepping stone approach. For example, like David and me did. David did it internally, I did it externally, but go from a QA to a BA to a PO or PM, because this way you will actually see a PO or PM in action, so you can learn from him or her. Well, in David's case, this wasn't the case. In my case, I was able to see other people in action. The only unfortunate thing was they were even less experienced than me. Uh, so, but yeah, I think getting promoted internally is the best option. So that's what you should try to aim for, because it will be easier, you will have more credibility, and there will be more patience. And if you follow the road that I took, you will get hired as a product owner, and you need to perform. And yeah, and as well, a third point, you can also find start how do you say, associate product manager roles. So really roles where they don't ask for experience. So that's also what you could apply for if you're able to find them. But I also have to say those jobs are also not easy because there will be a lot of people applying. So what I think as well is really important, which people don't do enough, is play to your strengths. Because, for example, if you're a developer, what sets you apart is you have technical knowledge. There are technical product owner and technical product manager roles, or API product owner roles. So try applying for those, because if somebody applies who doesn't have this technical knowledge, then you have a chance. And same, if you have experience in sales or recruitment, try to find a job at a company where they are developing a product in the domain, because especially if that knowledge is complicated or difficult to acquire, it may give you an edge over candidates. And this is also something I can really advise: go for smaller companies. So unless it's a bigger company, sometimes have these associate roles, right, where you don't have experience. But startups have a bigger risk appetite. They don't care as much about credentials, and they don't check as much, do you tick all the boxes. And yeah, the corporations are just less likely to think about the box, out of the box. So try to apply for smaller companies. So let me give you an example, right? This sounds very vague and abstract. So this is Pete. Pete has a master's in finance and he works as a developer. So what I would do is try to find a product role at a startup, a scale up, working on a complicated finance product, and preferably in a team that does something more technical. And then you already are ticking a few boxes, which sets you apart, because not everybody does have this knowledge. So you need to work intelligently with what you have. And let me give you some examples of people that didn't do this, right? So I actually interview a lot of candidates and review resumes. So I actually had an amazing resume from a BI consultant who wants to become a product owner. And I looked at his resume and I was super impressed. But I was wondering, would this person be a good product owner? And I rejected the guy because he didn't tell me any story why he would be a good product owner. I needed to make this leap in my head. And he should have, in his motivation letter on his resume, made more explicit how his experience relates to the job of a product owner, because then I know he understands and I don't need to think about it. And this is something which a lot of people forget. And as well, another mistake which people make on a resume, for example, I had multiple QA positions. If you created acceptance criteria in one position, don't mention it in the second position or the third position that you're doing it, because I know you're capable of doing it. So really think about, does this add value? And if you have 3 or 4 positions where you did the same thing, then don't mention it on every position. Mention it on the position where you did it the most complicated or the most impressive, because then the rest is just obvious that we're capable of doing that as well. Yeah, so spend a lot of time polishing your resume. Don't make them wonder why you're capable of doing the job. And this is especially important if you don't have experience, right? Because they need to make a leap of faith in their head. And you need to lower that threshold as much as possible. And the way I see it is your resume consists of three things, right? Signal, right? Do you generate this trust that you're capable of doing the job? Noise, so something that doesn't add information, like it doesn't, it's a sentence which doesn't tell you, oh, this is going to convince me that this guy is a great, or girl is a great product owner. And as well, are you addressing the doubts? For example, one of the doubts I had is I'm not technical. So I actually did a lot of courses in Code Academy in programming. So I added these at the top of my resume as well to address some of these doubts. Hey, this person isn't technical uh, because I studied biology. So it's very important that you increase the signal to noise ratio of your resume and you remove doubt. So don't dilute what makes you awesome. That's basically, don't may have a 5-page resume and don't list everything you did because they don't care about everything you did. Look at the job you're applying to and view your resume from their perspective, right? What are they looking for? What is important for this job? And focus your resume on those parts. Flesh out those parts more than you would normally do, because then you can create the most trust that you're capable of doing the job. David, what do you think about this? Do you have anything to add?
Totally agree with you because the point is addressing the doubts and showing that you are capable of. It's like a product, right? A good product is not the one you have nothing else to add, but you have nothing else to remove. So resume should be just the same. You're applying for a product position, and then think like, what do I need to show for product position? And then just keep that and remove all the rest. For example, if I would put everything I worked, imagine I work even in a butcher. Is it relevant to put that I work when I was young in a butcher? So no, nobody needs to know that. So why would I put that? I just put experience as a developer and my experience as a product. I have experience as Scrum Master as well in parallel to product owner. If I'm seeking for a product owner position, should I keep that? Maybe it creates noise, it creates doubt. If it creates doubt, kick it out. I believe that.
I'm sorry, David. I was just thinking it would make a great title, from butcher to product owner.
That was when I was young during the high school and so on. My uncle had a butcher, and then he said, "I need an assistant. Do you want to work with me and get some money?" I said, "Whoa, I need some money, so why not?" But yeah, so I guess I will not put that in my CV.
Nice. Yeah, and as well, like we talked about this a little bit before, right? But I think rejection, handling rejection well, is super important. So the way I look at it, and maybe David, you have some better tips, is when you resume gets rejected, I don't take that personal at all because I just see it as a paper version of myself. So when I submit my resume and I get rejected, I don't I don't care that much. I just feel like, oh, they rejected a paper version of myself, right? So and it's not even me, right? Just a limited version I chose to present to them. And yeah, when you get rejected during an interview, you're not rejected as a person. It's just an impression that you left. So that's something you can do better. They're not rejecting you per se. And I do want to stress it's tough, right? So I shared this before. Like I got rejected in the fifth round at Katabiki. I was talking to investors in the final round. I was sure I would get the job and I didn't. And if I can stress one thing, rejection is about credibility, not capability. So do they believe that you're capable of doing the job, right? Not are you capable of doing it? Because let's be honest, David, you and me in our first product owner job, we were not capable of the job. Like we needed to learn it on the job. That's how I see it, at least. But somebody gave us this trust. What do you feel about that statement?
Totally true. I think I was not capable for the first 3 years, to be very honest. I did a lot of math and I led the company, not the company, the developers, to build things that were worthless for years doing this. I was not able, but somebody trust me. And between my mistakes, I had some hits, but most of them were I missed the mark. And I agree with you. When someone rejects your CV, it's because they don't want to hear your story or your capability. Because, for example, I was rejected many times because the place I worked the most was 4.5 years. And then I had a sequence of working around the year in places. And when some recruiters look at that and say, this guy is just jumping from jobs to jobs, I don't want to hire him. But they don't know why I jumped from job to job. They don't know what made me jump, and they don't understand that. So they are missing the point of understanding my story. And that happens with many people. And I've seen that I'm going to reject him because the last two jobs, this person stayed only a year. We want someone who can stay 2 years. But you know the reason the person stayed a year, what made him or her leave. This lack of curiosity may reject some people and may reject some potential ones. And it's just a paper version. It's not the person. You don't know the story by looking at a paper.
Yeah, it's just a very limited representation.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, David, how do you prepare for interviews?
What I do is I try to get the most I can about the product. I use the product, and if it's an online shop, I will order, I will return things, and I will do everything you imagine. I will order many things, and then I will cancel. I will contact the customer service. I will try to understand how they work, not only by looking at the website. Because if I look at the web, I try to understand the corporate environment and how they work as a product company. But I think as a product owner, I need to get a feeling of the product. What is it about? And then I use the product. Preparation for me is this understanding how they connect their mission to the product. And then if I can understand that, then I feel prepared for the interview because then I can say how I can contribute to that mission within the product they have. And ideally, I come with the product for the interviews with some suggestions, with some place where I could see some potential improvement or something that could be tried out. So that is how I prepare. It takes some time for me, at least, to do that.
Yeah. I actually do the same, not as rigorously as you. I just play around with the product. Doesn't need to take a huge amount of time, right? But I do the same. But what I also always do is I prepare a list of questions. Like I can tell you one thing. Very often we interview candidates, and you ask. I always try to get them to ask questions. There are so many candidates that don't have a list of questions prepared, and I think just by having a list of questions prepared, it makes your life so much easier. You don't get nervous, and I can tell you there are quite some candidates that do not do this. Do you have the same experience, David?
Yes, the same, exactly. I also prepare questions because I want to know how they work. Like, are they output oriented or outcome? I want to know that. I want to know how roadmaps are prepared. I want to know, do they have product owners and product manager, only one title? So I want to understand how the company is structured. And when a candidate comes and I am interviewing, the candidate has no question. I doubt that. I doubt the
Yeah.
candidate really wants the job.
Yeah, I have the same feeling. Which is, of course, couldn't doesn't isn't necessarily true, right? But it at least
Yeah.
shows they didn't invest effort.
Yes.
So yeah, so I prepare a list of questions. Apart from that, what I also think is really underestimated is, I mean, I also curious what you think, but what I really don't like is I also do a lot of interviewing, and when I ask candidates a question, they don't come with something concrete. Yeah, so basically you ask them a question, okay, can you give me an example? And then you don't hear a concrete example. And that is really frustrating. And then sometimes I need to ask two or three questions. So can you tell me more until they really tell what happened? So that's something basically, I don't know if you're familiar with this star method, right? So really think about the situation and make it as concretely as possible. We can share it afterwards, but I think this also creates confidence. And of course, if you don't have experience, it's difficult, right? But that's why they ask these questions. So then still need to think about how do I give a good answer?
True. I don't know the STAR method, but I mainly interviewed more experienced product owners or product managers. But it surprised me how like abstract people can be because I asked, I believe in stories. I want to know what happened and what the person learned and so on. So I asked, can you walk me through a success story and tell me what was your role and why was that a success and what you reached with that? And then what I expect is starting with the end in mind, the outcome, and how you went through that. And what I get many times is nothing of that, and it's very hard to understand. And I also ask the opposite question about, like about the failure. Walk me through a failure. What was your contribution to that, and what you learned from that? And it's very hard when I put the word failure. Some people are saying, I don't recall failure. And if a product owner experience who has experience of 2 3 years says I have no failures, then it's not a real product owner, because that's gonna happen every time. Because if you're not failing, it means you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, and you're not learning, right? So I also
Yeah,
think it shows lack of self-reflection if they really believe that. Okay, a
exactly.
good point. It is also an interesting story. What are the biggest mistakes you've made during interviewing?
The biggest mistake I made is very clear. It's like overwhelming the the hiring manager with information.
Yeah,
Because I have worked in many places as a product owner, and sometimes they ask me like, "Can you walk me through your experience?" And this is a dangerous question because I can get very lengthy on that.
yeah,
And
you're right.
that was my mistake. I was walking through my whole experience, story by story, but I missed the point. I should walk them through my relevant experience to the position they have. And sometimes I say like, well, my experience relevant to what you have is this, and then I share some examples.
Yeah.
And my mistake also in
Wait,
interviews,
wait,
yeah,
wait, Park. Sorry,
yeah,
sorry, because I think you're touching a very important topic. Because I can tell you this is really is one of the biggest mistakes that people make during interviews. Because I'm doing a lot of interviews as well. I've also made that mistake. So I really think this is something you need to be really aware of. Like make a short introduction, right? Tell them enough about what you did, but not too much. They will ask more. That's what you need to know. You don't need to tell everything. And I think this comes from this natural tendency, right? Especially when you don't have experience, you want to prove yourself. So you want to put all the evidence out there. Look, I'm good. Look, facts, facts. I did this, I did that. And you need to fight that urge. And another reason why you need to fight that urge is because during the interview, you need to build a relationship. If you're just telling your story and sending, right, and not responding, like interacting, so that's also something which I think you always need to keep in mind. Make sure it's a conversation, not that you're telling your story. It needs to be interactive. If it isn't interactive, then you can do better. Sorry, so David, you want to give another example, but maybe you can comment or continue with your example.
no, I totally agree with you. And what I was saying, I call as information on demand. You should you give like a, it's like a funnel. You start with the most important. You give the highlights, like moving. For example, I start up from, I don't know, a business of 500K to 45 million. I collaborate on this. So that's what you share, the highlights. And then if they want to know more, they will ask. And one thing that I want to know is like getting concrete. And the mistake I used it was living on the abstract. Everything so abstract, story. But if you think in an interview, it's the round, it's the room the interviewer, hire manager have to see how good you are. And then I try. Now it's COVID time, is different. But before I would say, let's go to whiteboard and let's try to do something together. Bring me a problem you have, and then let's do something here. And then I was just showing how I think to the hiring manager, and that helped me get positions. If they understand how I think and it makes sense for them, then you can work together.
Yeah, excellent point. Yeah, I think being concrete creates trust because it's more difficult to fake. And then when you add all the steps from these concrete things, then it creates credibility because they can understand, oh, this was the situation, this is what you did, and this is what it resulted in. So yeah, I think you're spot on. Any more mistakes you would like to share, David? Or
I've done a lot of mistakes. Yeah, but the biggest one were these. But if I think out loud, I had mistakes of sometimes by missing the point, like bringing too much of my personal interest and not looking at what is the company's interest.
Yeah,
For example, what do I want for my career? And that sometimes they ask me because as I told, I changed my job a couple of times, and the interviewer, they almost kill me on that. So they hit me as strong as they can, and how I failed sometimes was by sticking to my wishes instead of trying to match with the companies, which how is it important for me and important for them.
I understand. It needs to be a win-win, right? It's not like, hey, these are
Yes.
my demands. Tell me if you can meet them.
Yes. But you know one thing that I want to say, like a mistake is not being authentic, not being yourself. Because sometimes I was a little bit shy on some things. I was r- not being so transparent on some things, like hiding something, not hiding, but avoiding saying. But once someone asked me the following question, what would make you cancel the contract? I said, well, I'll be very honest with you. I stay as long as there are enough motivating challenge for me. The moment I don't have anymore, I'm gone.
Yeah,
And
I
that
get it.
that was simple. And the guy connected, and I got the offer after that.
Yeah. That's a good point. Like, try to be a human being, right? It's so easy to get stuck in this play, like you're being interviewed. So jump through the hoops, do what they ask, but then you leave your yourself, your personality at the door, and then you're just a number. You're just one. They don't care about you as much. Like, bring some of that personality, and either they will like it or they won't. But at least you're being authentic, which matters because it creates credibility as well, I think.
Exactly. That is
Nice.
the point. You need to be yourself.
Maybe because we did a lot of talking, right? So we talked about preparing for the interview, strategy, right? Uh,
Yes.
Interviewing. So what are the questions from the people that are listening? How many people are still listening, David?
We have more than 200 here.
Nice.
More than an hour, more than 200. So it's your time. Ask us question, and I will put them here, and Martin and I will reply to you. I've seen many questions, and there is some discussions happening here, and it's pretty active, the chat here.
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because then I can see the questions. Is it okay,
Yeah,
David?
yeah, sure. So let's go here. Um, so just put the questions. What do you want to know about interview preparation? I saw many questions about the transition, and I can put some here that we could just start while people are asking the other questions. There was one here for you, Martin.
For a QA to transition into product management. Yeah, so one of the challenges I had was when you're a QA, I don't know how I can say this in a nice way, right? But QAs do have a stigma, right? People don't. I mean, that's always what I felt. Oh, you're QA, so you're somebody who's focused on the details. You want to find mistakes. Like it's very stigmatized. That's my feeling. So I try to always during interviews very much focus on the business aspect, right? To be very clear that I understood the big picture, the customer, and not focus so much on testing stuff, right? So that's what I try to do because what I see is many QA resumes, then you start talking about bugs and testing plans, but most people are not that interested in that. I'm sorry, like that's just I was a QA, so I don't. I hope it doesn't sound disrespectful. So really make it focused on the customer and the business value and how you made a difference. And yeah, that's what I really tried to do. And for me, I was not able to get a job as a PM directly from a QA. But I do think, for example, if you're working at a company as a QA, you're doing Scrum, try to be friends with the product owner. Maybe ask, hey, can I help you with writing some user stories? Or can I lead refinement? Or these kind of things. Because then you can add that to your resume. Like, hey, I did that. I did part of the product owner job. And maybe the PO will say, hey, you've got a talent for this. There's a position available. Do you want to try it out? So that's the kind of things you should be thinking about, right? Like getting a taste of the job uh, and ask, what do you do? How can I help you? I want to do it. That would be my advice, because applying outside is difficult. Internal is also difficult, but less difficult, in my opinion.
We've got a lot of questions here. Thanks for answering this one, Martin. Let's take some more here. There is one here. I think you also would be a good one. What's the best way to grow into a product management role from an existing product role, such as marketing?
Yeah, so what I can say is I see more and more product owner marketing roles. So this is something I would consider applying for, because then you have a marketing background, and you have some domain knowledge, as I said before, and preferably at a startup, right? This is the kind of things I would be try to do. And then there are two options: you apply and you get invited, right, to these roles. Great. That means there's something there. You've got a foot in the door. But if you don't get invited, then you need to figure out why. Why are you not getting invited? And then you need to figure out, based on the feedback, like why you're not getting invited. What is the best next step? But I didn't make that journey, so I cannot tell that to you.
There's one interesting here. I think we can try something different. What do you think are the top skills of a product manager?
You
You
can
can try
start.
to alternate this one. I think for me, it's communication the most important. And
Yeah.
communication, I mean, knowing how to talk with different audience and get to the bottom. Like, it's going beyond what they say. It's not only what they want. It's beyond finding what is key and what is not said, and being able to say no is part of the communication. So
Yeah.
communication for me is the first one.
Yeah. I agree
What
with
what
that.
else would you see? What would be the second for you?
Yeah, so I think communication is broad, right? It's all because
Yeah.
one thing I just want to add, you have to realize very often you need to influence stakeholders at all levels in the company, right? That's communication. And this is so important, because they are not going to listen to you because you're their boss, because you're not their boss. And that's the key thing. So what I want to add is another, I think one of the most important skills is applying the right focus. There are always infinite things you can do, but what should we really be doing? And then use those communication skills to say no in a way that people will still like you. And this is very difficult, because people want 1 million things, and you should only be doing one or two or maybe max three things. How do you let people down without making them feel sad? So this is where communication comes in again.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you use the name focus, and I would see that the same. I would generally I use the name prioritization. It's the
Yeah.
ability of prioritize, but also it's the ability of focusing. Because the prioritization for me, there's a big misunderstanding. When someone asks, "What are your priorities?" I say, well, "Priorities." I thought it was only one priority. Priority is one thing that you do, so you need to know the priority of the product. And I think it's important to know how to measure the outcome and be very creative on that.
Yeah.
Because how do you do that? Sometimes you don't have how to be able to measure the outcome as fast as possible. I think this is a very important skill.
I agree. So yeah, I think those are
Let's.
three, and then we can list more, but
There are many more, yeah. But I think if you have these three, then you can go then. How do you pass the CV screening process? I think that we covered, right? I think
yeah.
it's about, in summary, look at what the company expects and how can you connect to that. And your CV should tell a story that remove the doubts and connect to the point. And your motivation letter is very important. And this is something that's people sometimes they just try to use templates for motivation letter.
Correct. And one thing I do want to add, right? I know in the US you have these keyword things, these are horrible, horrible. So I don't have experience with that. So I unfortunately I cannot comment on that, but that could be important as well, depending on your region, that you need to have a lot of these keywords, because otherwise you're already going to score low in these evil applicant tracking systems. But yeah, I think we kind of discuss this. And otherwise, reach out, right? If you have any
Yeah,
questions.
just reach us out. And there's one here pretty interesting. What are the most recurrent questions for PM PO?
Yeah, so what's interesting, right? So let me start, right? So what I've
Mhm.
actually been given quite a lot as an assignment, and I also want to stress, um, how do you say, the field is evolving, right? So I suspect over time this will happen less. But very often I've got a problem, there's like the situation, and then you need to come up with a solution, right? And then they're like, yeah, make the user stories. Like this is a kind of question or assignment like I've been given a lot during interviews, which surprises me because I find it completely uninteresting and not that relevant. But David, what is your experience? Did you also have the same exercises and questions?
I had the same, and for me, this is really not how you discover if someone is good or not. I got many times this assignment, and
Prioritization as well, right? How would you prioritize these user stories, right? So,
yes, how would you prioritize, and how would you create a roadmap for the product? That's another
yes,
one.
yeah. So these are the
Question.
most common, and yeah. How do you say? I think I don't find these assignments that interesting, and I don't do these kind of questions. But you do need to be able to do it.
You do need to be able to come out of this puzzle, and uh, and and what I have found quite often is if you have experience already, at least here in Germany, the companies like asking to like to know you better, but taking an outside perspective, like what would the developers tell about you, and what would your boss tell about you,
Yeah,
what would
these.
your stakeholders tell about you?
Yeah, yeah, also a lot. And as well, what I also have been asked quite a lot is, can you walk me through how you decided to build a feature, and then when you've built it, how did you measure that it works or that it solved the problem? So just give me an example and walk me through all the steps that you did. Well, actually, they often don't even tell about the validation part. They will actually expect you to tell that. So that's also a good trap, right? They will ask you, can you walk me through? And if you don't tell them, hey, we built something and then we checked whether it worked, then they know, hey, this person just is used to working in a feature factory. So this is a
Yes.
common one as well.
Yeah, and a very similar to this one is like I've got a situation like how would you build the feature, and then there's like some recruiters expect you to define the epics and then the user stories for that, and then walk them through how you would do that. But what I like doing is saying like the question is not how, is why, and then we can define if the feature makes sense or not. And then the recruiter may look, oh, I don't have the why, and say if you don't have the why, then maybe we shouldn't be talking about this feature.
Yeah, no, absolutely true. So
Let's
yeah,
take another one here. That's an interesting one. How important is industry knowledge? I would also call as domain knowledge when looking for a product manager role.
you can start, David. What do you think?
Well, I have been in different industry knowledge, like automobile, trade marketing, online shopping. I think it is important, but it's from the place I've been, it was not vital. The vital was having the product management skills. If you have the product management skills solid, then you can overcome the traps because then you know how to ask the right questions. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't learn the domain knowledge. You should at the beginning can be very stressful if you don't have it because then you need to learn that as fast as possible. But I wouldn't exclude a candidate who doesn't have domain knowledge and has a solid product management knowledge. But the contrary, it can be harder in my perspective.
I really think it depends on the role, right? So I've never
Mhm.
worked as for example, a finance PO working in the payment industry, but I can imagine there are so many regulations, PSD2, so many steps you need to be aware of in privacy and finance and regulations that in those cases, you preferably hire someone, one who has the industry knowledge and one who has been a PO before. And maybe even you would rather have someone with industry knowledge and not a lot of experience even. Uh, but I can also tell you, it always helps, right? I mean, it's not. I think the experience in product is key, right? That will make a difference. But industry knowledge, the more complicated what they're asking for, the more important the industry knowledge becomes.
And I would totally agree to that. It's that's why I said from my experience it was not that important, because I didn't go into this very complex finance, insurance, and for example payroll. This I think without the domain knowledge, it can be really tricky to succeed in the role.
Yeah.
There are many more questions here. We have some more material. I would suggest you take two more here, and then we
Yeah.
we keep sharing. How do you think on your feet how to link your answers to the requirements of the job? I find it hard to do that on the spot. Any tips?
Yeah. So I think you shouldn't be thinking that much about the requirements of the job. Think about why are they probably asking this question? What do they want to know? What are they checking? Like you need to, and I also think is, I mean, record yourself, right? I mean, I don't know, like when you do during interviews, then you can see, hey, how did I answer? Do I like my answer? Uh, because you're going to get the same questions. So you need to be able to think on your feet, but I do think by doing it more often, you will need to less often think on your feet because 90% of the questions will not be original. There will be some variant of something you've heard before. So that's the first tip. And the second tip is think about why are they asking this question? What are they looking to learn? And yeah, try to give an answer based on that. Don't try to think about. So another thing is use the terminology, right? Like drop words, product backlog, user stories, epics, whatever. Because for me, it's a clear red flag if I talk to a candidate and they're applying for product owner role and I don't hear any familiar terms. So speak the lingo.
Yes, exactly. Speak the lingo. And I can only second that. You need to know beyond the requirements. The requirements are shallow. You need to know why they need that requirements. And that requires sometimes some preparation.
Yeah.
By understanding the product will help you to connect the dots. Instead, let's take two more here. There's one about recommendations. So someone was asking about book recommendations. There's so many questions here. This one here. Do you have any book suggestions to read about product management, or perhaps course suggestions, Coursera, or about product management? We have.
There are many books, right? But I honestly think, David, you give one book, right, which you think you should read when starting, and I will give one book. We're not going to give five books. Like you're
No.
starting out. So I think the most important thing is to have a book which will give you a foundation, and then you can read other books to feel like to hang it up there, right? In the skeleton that you have, the foundation. So maybe you can start, David.
Okay. And if I think I know the book you're going to recommend, but I would also, because you
No, but
already
I have two
recommended
books, right? I have two books in my head. So just
two.
do whatever. Yeah, I have two books in my head.
Okay, I would recommend for a starting point, a very good one for me is User Story Mapping, Jeff Patton, because that walk you through the minds. Because for me, the key takeaway of this is you don't build software for the sake of building. You build software to change people's life for the better. You want to make the world a better place. So it's User Story Mapping, Jeff Patton for me.
Yeah. I think The Build Trap by Melissa Perry is the best entry level book. I think Inspired by Marty Kagan is also good, but I think it goes way more in depth, right? So start with something which is more accessible, which provides foundation, and then you can read other books from Marty Kagan or to get a bit more in depth.
Those books I would recommend also, but you recommended me, so and I read that. I really enjoyed them. So they are great books. And about courses, there are many courses out there, but I think if you want to take a course from Scrum.org or Scrum Alliance, you should know who is going to give the course, because for me personally, it's important to get a course from someone who has hands-on experience, someone who can tell you real world stories. But that's the only thing I would say.
Yeah, check your trainer, check if they actually build products, because otherwise they're just going to read what they learned in a book and it will not be as vivid.
Exactly. I have courses also, but I'm not going to say here. We promise not to sell anything.
No.
That's it. So, but One thing here, I will just answer this before we go back. Do candidates need to acquire a PM certificate to apply for that position?
I don't think so, right? I mean, what I can say is, right, certificates can make a difference because they show eagerness. People attach value to these certificates, but be careful, right? People need to be familiar with certification. And as well, what I'm seeing, for example, the PSPO, everybody has a PSPO. So I don't think it's as valuable as it used to be. So be very careful, I think, because, yeah, I think you need to pick the right one, and that's not easy.
I have the same opinion. For a long time, I was recommending people to get PSPO or CSPO. It doesn't matter in my opinion, just to have on the CV and remove some doubts. To show you decide to take some steps to get the foundation.
Bing, tick the
Yeah,
box.
just this. It's not saying that this certificate is gonna prepare you for the job. It's just remove doubts from recruiters. That's the only thing I recommended. So you can choose. For me, if you want a recommendation, go with PSPO. I know everybody has, but you can do it in your time. It's online, and you don't need to pay a course of, I don't know, €1,500 or €2,000 to get a certificate. Okay, so I wrote it down here, the book recommendations you can find in the comments, and we have some more material to share, right, Martin?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
Let
good.
me share
So
my
let's
screen.
just continue here.
Okay.
And I'm pretty, yeah, the engagement is surprising me. Many questions here, we cannot take care of everything. Sorry for that, but
Yeah, but you can always message us afterwards and we'll try to help. So,
exactly.
David, your first months in product, what were they like?
Oh, they were like, I felt lost. I didn't know what I should do, and therefore I did everything wrong. So, what I thought a product owner was doing was bridging the communication between stakeholders and developers, and that's what I did. I took precisely what stakeholders wanted. I wrote it down, requirements, everything, as precise as I could, and then I gave that to the developers for 6 months, and we built exactly what stakeholders wanted. And I wanted to ensure alignment among them. And what I tried to do actually was to do a little bit of everything for each of them. That's what I did in the first 6 months. I was the bridge between development and business. That's it. I was more like a feature owner, a backlog owner, but not a product owner. That's what happened.
Yeah, same for me. So I'm curious, did you suffer from imposter syndrome, feeling like, am I able to do this? Do I know what I'm doing?
Totally. I really suffered from that because I felt I don't really know what these people are talking about. I cannot challenge them. I don't know what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And then I started receiving some tough questions from developers like, why do you bring this? Why is that important? I lack the why. And developers were getting annoyed, saying, yeah, but does that really make sense to build? What does that generate for the audience? I didn't have the answer, and that started annoying me. And then I started getting frustrated. Developers started getting frustrated, and business also got frustrated because I tried to please everyone. And then I thought, is this job really for me? Then I thought, I'm sure I'm doing something wrong. And that's when I started reading the books to understand what the hell was going on. And then I got to know many things about it's not about doing everything, it's about prioritizing one thing, focus, and go into the outcome. But start with the outcome in mind, then you can define what to do. But if you don't have the outcome, everything can be arguably a priority.
Yeah, absolutely right. So what I really recognize is I felt like a failure. I also hear that, I think, in your answer. And yeah, I think that's normal. And that's also why I really think cold turkey, getting a product owner or product manager role without any experience, right? It's not easy. And you need to be prepared to realize you're going to feel like I have no clue what I'm doing, I'm failing. You need to be able to handle that. And even when you get more experience, sometimes you still will have this feeling because a lot of the role is about dealing with uncertainty and complexity. you need to be able to handle that. That you don't always know what you're doing, and you need to figure it out as you go along.
Yes, totally. I can connect to that totally. And this is what's going to happen in many scenarios, because you may not have someone to get you to the next level. You need to figure
Yes.
out that on your own.
Yes, I never had that, to be honest. So yeah, that's also because it's a new field. I think it is changing though.
Yeah. I had that only after a couple of years on the road. Then, when I was already a senior product owner, I had someone leading the team and I could learn more from this person. But it took 7 years on the road to get someone to coach me.
Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah, so of course this sounds a bit demotivating, right? So when did you start to feel like, hey, I know what I'm doing? Of course, there's still moments when you have doubts. I think that's normal in this job. But when did you start to feel like, hey, I'm feeling confident. I know kind of what I'm doing.
That's going to be an interesting question, because I had two moments of that. And one moment was after, I think, 4 years on the road, and I thought I got it. Now stakeholders trust me. Developers are also happy with me. We are oriented. We are delivering value for the business somehow, and it's working. What I imagined to be value, and I thought I'm a good product owner. That's it, and I was really happy with myself until I had the interview with Booking. That demotivated me totally, because I realized I didn't know what value was. I thought value was story points. The more story points we deliver, the more value we deliver. And the stakeholders were aligned. We focus on going in a unique direction, at least something in priority, but we missed the point on measuring value. I don't remember any single time back then when I removed a feature from, I decided to remove a feature from live environment. It was only adding. And that was the moment I felt again, phew, 4 years, and I don't even know how to measure the value. 4 years doing the wrong thing. And I said, and I thought I was good. And then at the end, I said, I'm really crap. I'm really
Yeah,
crap in this.
this is really recognizable. For me, it was also, I don't know, I think after 2 or 3 years, I thought, oh, I know what I'm doing. And then I realized at some point, I didn't have a moment like you, right? I also had this epiphany at some point where I was like, okay, I actually don't know what I'm doing. There's this whole new world out there. Same reason as you, like focusing on delivering features. And yeah, now I'm at this state where some parts I'm like, yeah, I know how to do this, and other parts I'm not as good. And yeah, I think that's how do you say? I believe, but I don't know if you feel the same way. There are so many facets to product. You will never be awesome at everything, and you need to live with that.
Totally true. You will never be awesome at everything. Need to. What I try to do is to make my strength stronger and develop more on that. But my second moment when I realized I got this, but was in Germany, when I got the chance of coaching other product owners, and then I could see they developing. And I started being a more invisible product owner to the development team, to developers, because they started making decisions and I was just providing guidance. Then I realized I am not a bottleneck anymore. I can go on holiday without preparing the backlog for the next 2 sprints. And the team can work without me. The team can make decisions. And then I realized I changed the way I was working from being a bridge to being like a catalyst. I was empowering them. I was doing differently, but still, I don't think I am perfect. I'm very far from that. I think there's always something I can do better. I think I can do my job now. That's what I believe. But I'm always looking for something to learn and something to improve. Now I have a learning mindset.
Yeah, I'm the same way. A very nice answer. Yeah, well, I think we already touched a little bit on this, right? So let me recap. I
Uh-huh.
think we both focused on delivering features, right? So
Yes.
not the outcomes. You actually said that you were focused on pleasing people. I
Yeah.
actually had a different problem. So pleasing stakeholders, I actually was very good at saying no, and which is great, right? But people thought I was very rude because I would literally just say, no, we're not going to do that. It's not valuable or whatever. So what I really needed to learn is, first of all, I don't know everything, right? So I could be wrong, my gut feeling or whatever I was thinking. So what I really tried to learn is to really listen and understand, why do you want this? To really ask questions so they feel heard, right? And then you still can say no, but you say it in a respectful way. And you can also give the soft no, right? Let me think about it, get back to him later, and then say no, right? But yeah, that's the biggest thing I had to learn. Like, say no in a way that they still like me.
I like this. You put it very beautifully. Um, yeah, saying no is a critical skill. It took me a while to learn that and develop. At the beginning, it's because the scenario was like this. Imagine every business department had a business analyst, and the business analysts were taking requirements for them and preparing the case and giving to developers. It was a waterfall structure. But then once we shifted to Scrum, what happened is I was, as a business analyst, responsible for three different departments. And then I had to talk to each of them. And they were used to get their things on the pipeline somehow. And we shift to Scrum, but mainly on the execution, not on the whole organization level. So that was a trap. And it took me a while to move from these pleasing stakeholders to really doing agile, focus on one thing at a time and so on. But once I learned how to say no, it changed my life dramatically, because it's not about like just saying no, we are not going to do that. It's once people feel heard, as you said, if they feel heard and understood, that's it, they can commit to your decision. It's fine. But if you just say no without bringing the why, then it's not going to work.
Yeah. That's an important point you're touching. Another important point, when you say no, give the context, explain the why, and then the next time they won't come with you with a question, with that same question, right? Because they understand why it doesn't fit with your product vision or your strategy. So explain the reasoning behind the why, the reasoning behind the no, not just say no.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this is an important topic, right? And how important is technical knowledge in your opinion, David?
In the past, I thought it was critical. Without that, I believe product owners couldn't succeed because I have a strong technical background, computer science as bachelor and then master. So I was looking from my perspective. But now what I think is product owners need to know how to connect the dots. Without any technical knowledge, it's not going to work, I think. Because how can you help developers find, I would say, right size solution? By asking the right questions. And because many times the challenge is, how do we find something that is worth building, and with the balance, finding the balance. And without the technical knowledge, that makes our life so hard. But in this case, it doesn't mean you need to have a bachelor in computer science or whatever. What I think is, you need to be willing to learn how a software is built, how to connect the dots, what is an FTP, what is a database, how it communicates with API, and so on. If you can understand the big picture, your life is just going to be easier. That's my perspective.
I completely agree. So I don't have a technical background. I did learn did learn how to script. I don't call it programming because yeah, I'm not a developer, right? But what I do think is important is, at the end of the day, the solution you choose affects value, right? The cost of maintenance, the time to market. So you need to understand, what are the trade-off decisions we're making. Could we do it in a simpler way? And I can give you an example. Like, a team gave an estimate to build something that was 3 months, and I challenged them a lot and just said, "Look, this is not valuable enough to work 3 months on, but we have to work on it." It was unfortunately a political project coming from the CEO. So I actually said, "What can we build in 2 weeks? Because I don't believe this will be valuable, and we're going to need to throw it away." So what we actually did is we built as I said, it only needs to be able to handle 3 orders per day or something like that. So we came up with a very shitty solution, not scalable at all. And I promised the team, if it becomes a success, we're going to rebuild it. So, and what happened was it wasn't a success, and it was not because of our technical solution, because it was just a bad idea, like I suspected. And we only wasted 2 weeks of time. And yeah, so that's why I think it is super important, because you need to understand and sometimes challenge the team. And they challenge in a good way, right? Not in a bad way.
I totally see the same, and I like your example because I do this, and I like bringing the question. This is worth investing 2 weeks of time. What can we do in 2 weeks of time? It's not like a building a perfect solution. This is what the value the future can bring, and then after that we can decide if we invest more time or not.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, I really like this, and that, having this understanding of the team makes things easier. Also, sometimes it's a trap for coming from a development background, which was my case, because you can fall into a very technical discussion, a deep technical discussions, and focus on the architecture. And sometimes I encourage developers to focus on building the thing right, even though we didn't know if it was the right thing to build. And then we invested a lot of time in the architecture just to get to know later we needed to throw away. So my background in this case trapped me. So it is important to find a balance.
I believe the biggest uncertainty is not the technical uncertainty, right? I mean,
Exactly.
we can build crazy things. Value uncertainty, that's the most difficult thing. And that's what we should try to reduce as quickly as possible with the simplest solution possible. And yeah, having that conversation is very difficult but crucial, because otherwise you're going to build solutions with a long time to market, very technically beautiful, only to find out that you're not delivering any value. And thus you waste a lot of time.
Exactly. I've been in situations where we invested a lot of time, and I remember a developer looked at me. He came. He was from Dominican Republic, and he looked, David. Here in Dominican Republic, we have a lot of mosquitoes. You know how we kill mosquitoes? We kill them with the flip flop. We just go and hit them, pow. But I feel like the solution we built was taking a bazooka to kill a mosquito. It's such a heavy thing. He said, let's just focus on the flip flop next time.
That's a really cool story. So yeah, I think we already tackled this one, so I'm going to skip it, right? Because we already did, was a question that somebody asked. So they asked a very good question.
And some
But
people here ask the question, what is the difference between a PM and a PO? I've seen this question here in the chat. Don't know if you just want to give your 50 cents to that very quickly.
yeah, I
There
think
was
we gave it in the beginning, right? So
uh-huh.
the way you can see it is a product manager is an expert in product management. A PO is an expert in product management, and that's what Scrum calls the expert in product management. It's just a label for the same thing. That's my personal opinion. And people overcomplicate it by saying you have PMs and POs, but read the Scrum guide. It's called a product owner, not a product order taker, right? So these two, if anything, right, a product owner is an owner of the product, so is responsible for the whole product. So a PO has more responsibility than a PM, because in the PM world, product management world, the one who owns the product is the VP of product, right? Or if you have a single product, the chief product officer. That's the PO. But these are just, don't worry about it. You need to be an expert in product management. Whether it's called a PM or a PO, not important.
Totally true. I cannot put it differently. I see exactly in the same direction. For me, what is very important is to be one person responsible from end to end. And I think if you add both, the only thing you add is confusion and complexity. And this is what makes it very hard for both sides. And
Yeah.
it takes the fun out of the job.
Yeah. Most of the time, when you need a PM and a PO, the problem is actually that you're working the wrong way with the team, that you're actually giving the team orders, and that's why you need a backlog owner. And if you work on empowering the team, then you don't need a PM and a PO, period.
That's it.
Yeah.
Kind. Mhm.
So these were the questions we wanted to tackle. I'm going to unshare my screen for now. And yeah,
We have already questions here. But guys, just ask more questions and we will tackle them. We'll take a couple of questions here. There's one here. How did you guys deal with technical debt in your experience as a PO PM?
you can start, David, or I can start,
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
I can start this one. I've recently written something about it. It's not published yet, but I used to deal with that as a bad thing. I hated the technical debt, although I come from development side. But I was so annoyed with developers going, yeah, we have a technical debt and we need to tackle that and so on and so on. But I didn't understand the source of that. Why was that happening? And then once I got to understand the source was me, my decisions of building things, focusing on the value and producing, trying to get more value, was creating technical debt. But developers were not claiming to fix that. For now, what I think is very simple. We make a clear decision at the beginning. We want to tackle the value uncertainty, as you said, Martin. There's a value uncertainty. We need to understand if we are gonna get there or not. Then we invest as little time as possible, put something in the market and test. And if that works, then we invest more time. But at this point, we are creating a lot of technical debt. This solution may even be useless. And once it proves to be the right one, then you say, aha, now it's not the time to go to the next solution and leave this shit here in the product. It's time to build this correctly and clear out the technical debt. It's like a bank. You take a loan from the technical debt, and then you pay it off before you take the next one. So that's how I deal with that.
Yeah. What I really like your answer, and I completely agree. Like it's better to polish something that's valuable than to polish something which isn't valuable. But what I would like to add is I think one of the biggest challenges is that companies don't treat their developers with enough respect. And I'm using this word very consciously because the way I see it, if you're, let's say you're in the kitchen, right, and you need to cook 5 dishes, you're going to make a mess. And the cook is allowed to clean up while cooking, right? Because otherwise, at some point, you cannot cook anymore because there are dirty pots and pans everywhere. You're going to fill, and your restaurant will not work. So everybody expects a cook to clean the kitchen, but we don't expect our coders to clean up their code, right? That's something they need to put on the product backlog, and that's not how I operate. Like I really give them the responsibility. So whenever they estimate, include fixing of technical debt. Like, and if the estimate is really much bigger than I expected, I will ask why. But very often I don't ask because I just accept it. Okay, this is the time it takes. And I think that's what we should be doing more often. Like let them, it's part of the job, cleaning up
It,
technical debt.
it's part of the job, cleaning up technical debt. I totally see that. One question I like asking about the long estimates is like, what drives complexity up to ensure that we have the same understanding? But it's not challenging them on their work. It's just to ensure understanding. And
Yeah,
I totally see the same. Companies don't respect developers. They want them to be like in a factory, the ones
yeah,
producing more and more and more.
yeah, correct.
There's an interesting one here. How do you identify the minimal viable features of product before build strategize? Is there any indicators or tips to focus on? What
Yeah,
would you say, Martin?
I think we're going to say the same thing. But I think it's really important to understand the customer, right? What are their pain points? What's their problems? What is the smallest thing we can build to solve those pain points? Build a prototype, right? Or like nowadays with Figma, you can build something pretty quickly and show it to users. Do some user testing. Like don't immediately start building because building is slow. Making changes when you build something is slow. Like that's what I really think is super important. Show something small and ask for feedback from real users. Does this solve your problem? What is, and then start building. And yeah, very often this is not something you can do within the same sprint. That's my personal opinion. Like you need a little bit more time to think about it, but that's how I believe you should be doing it. What do you think, David?
I see in the same direction. I like imagine um, which is the job the customer is trying to do, and then what kind of solution can we offer so that the customer would hire us to solve his job? I like
Yeah.
thinking in the direction of jobs to be done.
Yes.
And I'm totally with you. It is about testing as fast as possible, prototype, low investment, and also low quality, because we want you to tackle the uncertainty, and then we will shape what we need to build, and then we build something, because
Yeah.
building, it costs a lot of time and money.
But I want to stress, jobs to be done. You need to be do jobs to be done interviewing, and that's a whole field, and it's not something you easily master. So I understand jobs to be done, but I've never done the interviewing, and I think it's not that easy to master.
No, it's not. It's something hard, um, but the bottom line is you need to understand the needs of your customers, the end users, the guys who take your product into use. If you understand that, then uh, it
Any
becomes
feature will
clear.
get you there, right?
Yes. There's another one. There's some more question here. This one. Can you give some examples of measuring outcomes or approaches that have helped you develop those measures?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you want to start, or I can start?
Yeah, I have a lot of experience in e-commerce, and I think Martin also, but I use different things to measure the outcome. I use like Google Analytics, Mixpanel, but the tool itself, it doesn't matter. It's what you want to measure. And what I try to think is not to focus on the end outcome, because, for example, let's say your goal is to increase conversion rate, or your goal is to increase to reduce customer acquisition costs to become profitable. But this is, it's long. I try to think on what are the leading indicators that would lead to this, and then I measure this part. Then I say, if this is going up, consequently the outcome will also go up. So that's the strategy I try to think.
Yeah. So I can give a concrete example, and it isn't mine, but I really like this one because it's very interesting. So you have a Dutch supermarket company, Picnic. They deliver online groceries. So actually, one of their USPs is we reduce the time you need to waste on shopping. Like you have better things to do than to shop. So what they actually did was they measured the amount of time it takes to complete your shopping basket. So how many minutes? And then they started implementing things to reduce this. So it shouldn't take 5 minutes. It should take 4 minutes or 3 minutes. And one of the things they did, for example, was recommendations. So basically saying, hey, you should order these things. And then they measured, okay, how is the time to fill the shopping basket? So I think this is a very nice example of the product marketing, which talks about the USP. So it's solving this pain point, quantifying it, and making improvements to see, hey, we're indeed making their life better because they have better things to do than to shop.
Clear. Really clear.
Nice.
Nice. Another one here. I've been a designer for 15 plus years. I notice I get my joy out of ideation. Next to managing, does the PO role include any level of product ideation?
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. So what I do, I think the beauty of the product owner role is, imagine you have an idea for a new product or a new feature or a new module. You're in a position to do that. So you can think of these ideas, but you need to convince stakeholders, right? So unless you're the head of product and you're responsible for the budget, right? You need to influence people. So I do think that there is this opportunity, but you need to influence people. And the good news is, to be a good product owner, you need to be able to influence people anyhow. So you're going to level up in that regard as well. So yeah, I definitely do think there's this opportunity, and it also depends on your seniority, whether you're able to call these shots. But
Yeah, I can only second that. For example, when I was in Brazil, I hosted many design sprints because I believe to be a good way of testing, and we had very intense sessions. Really by the book, a full week, 40 hours, and doing that, and that's what I started as a PO. But I had to start it. If I don't ask for that, nothing happens. So it's like how, because this is the really fun part of the job. There are many ways to get to the point where you deliver value. and then you should take the driving seat and not the passenger seat, and let the others make decisions for you on how you get there. Because if you sit on a passenger, you can be sure people will decide how you do your work. But if you are bold and say, that's what I need to do to get value delivered, you can get support for that. Let's take 2 more questions here. There are some things here. Many companies seek for people in PO, PM roles with a lot of prerequisites in their job descriptions, like domain expertise, dev skills, technology awareness, QA background. What do you think of such job descriptions?
Yeah, I think these are symptoms of dysfunctional organizations, to be really honest. So these are clear red flags for me that it's not a product owner, it's a feature owner. They probably have component teams. You need to coordinate with many different teams. Maybe you even have a QA team. So, yeah, generally you don't see this in startups. You see this in corporations, and it's a symptom of the many dysfunctions that they have. So, which is okay, right? I mean, but that's how I see it. David, am I being too harsh?
Yeah, I see the same, and I also see a lack of preparation. Sometimes it's kind of, I've seen a position. My brother's a software developer, and he received an invitation for an interview, and it was Angular developer, and then the second bullet point was experience with React. So it's sometimes the recruiters, they ask something, but they don't know what they are asking for. They just put the things there, and sometimes it's not written by the hiring manager. And this is a challenge, and that's why I don't take job descriptions so seriously. I look more at the company and so on, because I see so many weird things there, and sometimes it doesn't reflect what the company is doing. But of course, it reflects in one thing: how serious they take the role.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And yeah, I also think during the interview, always ask, what are you looking for? Because sometimes they will say completely different things than the job description. And that's good to know, right? Because the person you're talking to, that's what they think. And that's what you need to convince them, not the job application. You're already invited. So it's a good question to ask.
Exactly.
So one more or two more questions, David?
One more. We have a lot more here. Let's take 2 more, and then we close the round here.
Yeah, it's a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, almost 2 hours, and really this engagement. I'm really happy with the audience. Really happy, and happy to help you. How do you define the North Star metric for your product? What is the recommended framework for this? I think this is one of your favorite topics, Maarten.
I'm not saying it's one of my favorite topics, but what I can say is there is a book from Amplitude. Read the book. Like I can give you an answer, right? But they wrote a whole book on it. I didn't read it, but I think the key thing is to keep in mind is you really need to think about how does your product deliver value. For example, I worked at a company doing digital asset management, right? So you need to really think about digital asset management is about pictures. So customers, brands use us to be on brand. You can upload your pictures, and then how do we deliver value? And the challenge there is it is a two-sided marketplace. The picture needs to be available, needs to be found. So you really need to dig deep. And I cannot disclose what we came up with there, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't know if there's a recommended framework. Probably if it is there, it's in that book, which I didn't read. So we can send you the link, and otherwise send me a message on LinkedIn.
I thought I said it's one of your favorite topics, but for you, it's a sprint goal. That's what that you would
That's okay.
with something.
This is a different topic.
Yeah, there's one interesting here, and it happens quite a lot. When you say design prototype for MVP or even features, what it looks like an upfront design sprint, what will programmers do during the ideation phase?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I don't know, right? So I'm not a big fan of basically. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest. I don't believe in uh, developing everything in one sprint, right? So doing the user testing, everything, and then building it in one sprint. You need to schedule interviews with multiple customers. You need to build this high fidelity prototype. It takes time. It's not possible in 2 weeks. So yeah, it does sound like upfront design, but I think it's just a matter of involving a UX designer, also involving a developer, right? Involving them early. So you shouldn't exclude them, but you cannot include the whole team either, I think. And this is what I think what's her name? I can't remember her name, but she talks about in the book on discovery, Teresa Torres.
Yeah.
So get this trio and involve them. And there, trust me, there's always enough stuff to do. There are always bugs. There are always technical debt. There is no chance that there. I've never had not enough work.
Yeah, I see the same. I think it's important to be aligned, and like I don't believe everything can be built in one single sprint because of all the implications.
Test
But
it. Maybe let's be clear, right? Test it, right? Because building,
that,
yes, you can, but doing all the discovery and testing, yeah.
no, I mean to the moment you come with an idea to the delivery, test and everything. So that, but what I believe is important is it's not a design upfront as a waterfall that developers are not involved. Developers actually, for me, they are even part of the test. They should see what the users are giving as a feedback, and then they can imagine what they could provide as a solution. So it's a different way of working, and this is what it's a phase, and you are discovering what makes sense or not, and you are not leaving developers surprised when you come. This is what we're gonna build. Developers will say why. I think it's a point of not letting them be surprised.
Yes. So, David, I think that's enough. What I also want to say is, so I have a final slide, but I'm just going to say it, right? Send us a message or add us on LinkedIn. Follow us on Medium. We write a lot of articles, which will hopefully help. Please give us your feedback, what you thought about it, right? I cannot see any of the comments. Should we host another session maybe in the future, right? Maybe on a specific topic. Tell us what you like and what you didn't like. And you can always send us a message on LinkedIn if you have some questions. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say. David, do you have anything to add?
I just want to thank everyone to participating. The engagement here was pretty high. You couldn't see the comments, Martin, but there are a lot of comments, and I've just shared our links here on Medium and LinkedIn. You can find us, follow, and please just contact us. And if you want another session with us, what would you like to hear from us? Because we share a lot of insights on media, and sometimes we have a little bit of adverse, different opinions, but it's part of the game. It's perspective, and we like helping you develop into product, and we want to help, and not only you to advance in the company, but help you build real products and break into this. So if you want to get help from us, just tell us what we would like to hear from us, write on LinkedIn, and then we can decide to host
Yeah.
another session.
And also tell us what we could have done better, right? We just did this
Yeah,
in our free time, and I'm sure we could have done far better, but we did our best.
yeah, yeah. And I can show here some feedback. Thanks Alberto. Thanks everyone here who participated and are giving the feedback for to us. I really appreciate also your participation. Martin and I took our free time just to see how it would play out. We did our best we could here with our free time, but it's for you. Tell us what we could do better, and just write to us. You can write on the event in LinkedIn.
As
So
well.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, just right there we will see, and then
But also
just
please
help
write what
us.
you liked, right? Because it's otherwise it's also demotivating.
Yes, tell us what you liked and what you didn't. Like, tell us what would be the insight you would share with someone you got from today. That would help us. Thank you everyone, and I wish you a great weekend. Thanks Martin for organizing all of this. That was really nice.
Thanks.
Thank you everyone.